or no?
Let me check. I just got a notification. Eric Finnegan tagged me in a video.
Yep.
Oh shit. No, I'm listening. Yeah, I had the audio on. Yeah, I see you. I don't see me. Oh, it's switching back and forth.
Yeah. So
There's my girlfriend's son is playing video games in the background. So if you see a little boy back there, I didn't kidnap him or anything.
cool. Okay, so
it wasn't an invitation to I wouldn't.
Yeah, unless your parents had money or something, but you are kind of parent situation. So okay, so let's talk about, like, you want to talk about the coronavirus first, or you want to talk about something else first? Because I feel like the coronavirus is everything right now.
One thing I would like to touch on, I see a lot of people I love and admire and respect a lot,
Yeah.
talking about, and some of them, they admit they're conspiracy theorists, or they have a conspiracy theorist within them that's trying to get out. And I get that. I have the same thing. 10 years ago, I was, watching Zeitgeist and stuff like that, esoteric agenda. But like a mutual friend of ours said, made a claim that China was using the coronavirus to thin their population, which to me is an incredible assertion.
Oh yeah, it's very
but
large
also,
claim.
if you did, and I said this in replied to him, I was like, well, if that was what they were trying to do, why would they get it under control so quickly? Why would they lock down the city? They shut it down, and apparently they've had by one account 15 new cases in the last week. By another report, 8 cases yesterday. So, and by anyone's account, China has gone down dramatically, and apparently South Korea too. I don't know as much about South Korea. I know more about how it spread initially there, but apparently the response is proving to be effective. They're doing drive-through checkups, and I think I heard something earlier about our country adopting the same thing, not checkups, drive-through testing. So they're no one's going into the hospital and things like that. So yeah, and not only is it people I know, but I saw some people on Fox News, and there may be some people on liberal media too, but I think this is mostly on Fox News, the hardline anti-China people saying that China didn't do enough. It's their fault that we're, all this shit. And like, I mean, I don't, apparently there was on the local administrative level in Wuhan, some people suppressing it, but there's no evidence that I've seen, or even any real claims that the suppression was coming from the center of the government, the Communist Party, or anything like that. It sounds like it was more of a local municipality government that was suppressing it in the Wuhan city. But to me, everything I've seen, it seems like the Chinese government, once they, really knew understood it, did really, really well. They just closed their last temporary hospital today. I mean, they're pretty much done with it, right as we're starting. I don't know how we're gonna deal with it. I don't, I've been saying for a while, I don't think it will be good here. I don't see how we're gonna, do what they did, or even something closer, something comparable to containing it.
I was listening to a podcast that had someone who is like a medical expert, and he was saying that he didn't even think that we should even do it based on principle. Like we shouldn't lock down the cities. We shouldn't, like try to like enforce any sort of quarantines or anything like that, because we don't want to be like a country like China. And so that was kind of like his whole argument with, and I thought that was a
libertarian argument, right?
Yeah, I thought that was a pretty interesting argument, just, because he's supposed to be like a, medical expert. And when you look at China and how they did just shut down everything, and it was super draconian, and there
wasn't a conversation about it like this.
This is what's going on. You guys are going home. Like, we're going to cover everything, but you guys are going to be at home. So I think for the United States is kind of a hard situation to do something like that, because we don't have the ability. Like, I think it's awesome that they're saying that they're going to try to figure out some kind of paid time off and, free testing and things like that. But I just don't know if we have the infrastructure to actually like handle something crazy like that. And I, I think the conspiracy thing is really weird because uh, it's based on all these really weird fallacies. It's like looking back at all these CEOs that are stepping down from their roles, and like what the fuck does that have to do with anything? But also um, claiming that this is like going to be the thing that starts the new world order,
Yeah. Well, the New World Order is not such an
Bad
obscure
idea.
conspiracy thing. Well, no. No, what I'm saying is George Bush Sr., talked about the New World Order in the 80s. And this is something that was like people like Alex Jones talk about the New World Order, and it's some multinational conspiracy involving every big state, working together behind the scenes, and they're just pretending not to get along for the for cameras and shit. Um, but the New World Order, what it was, is it was this uh, plan for what would happen after the dissolution of the Soviet Union. The New World Order, the American World Order, like the West dominating everything. And they've tried to do that throughout the Bush. I guess really, I think what Bush, George W. Bush, sort of started with the wars was an attempt to sort of consolidate power in certain regions, specifically in the Middle East, and to try to establish um, a new world order. But China crept up behind the scenes, using our own greed against us, getting American companies move their production over there. I mean, it's happening way before that, but they didn't see China coming and threatening the new world order, and they really have. There isn't this new world order that the neocons hoped and prayed for and that they wanted to see. Instead, we have a multipolar world where China's really right up there with us, in my opinion, especially after this coronavirus thing. It shows what they're able to do. But then you have Russia. I think more than a regional player, diplomatically, Putin's all over the place, and he's. I mean, I don't I don't think Putin's the greatest leader for his own people. I mean, can't think of a leader on the planet that I know about that I don't have some criticism of them. But just on the level of his diplomacy and what he's done to make friends and to influence other countries and to influence directions that countries are moving in, I think is Russia is I think a real big global player right now, and Putin will go down in history as one of the most um pre it's just one of the most epic statesmen, just the
Have
things
you
that
have you looked at like what they're doing politically right now with their political system? They just changed a bunch of stuff over there, and now I guess he's gonna like try to run again. Or I thought
so
initially when the news came out that he was trying to make it so that you couldn't run for more than 2 terms, but from what I was reading on RT the other day, he's thinking about running again or something. I don't know. Maybe I should pull that
yeah,
up.
I remember looking into that when it came out because I was reading what the West was saying, and then I went to see what they were saying and looked at some more objective journalists. And if I'm trying to remember what the whole deal was, it changed the Constitution, and I'm trying to remember what the changes were. Uh, had well the whole government or most of the government resigned, and he moved around, shuffled around some people, and I can't remember what it was though. But I remember that according to Russia, it was creating more democracy, and according to the West, it was taking away democracy. And I can't remember the details right now, so I don't.
Yeah,
Feel like
I'm trying to pull it up, um, but I thought like from what I was reading when the news first hit, it was kind of it seemed like he was trying to give himself less power and make it more democratic. But
yeah, I think it gave more power to the Duma or something like that, their parliament. But I also remember, I think he was saying that he's.
oh wait, here I just found this article that this is on RT, so it's somewhat
Okay.
objective. But it says the Russian president says a suggestion by
RT
MP.
America, because I think
What?
RT America is more independent than RT Russia.
Uh, I don't. know. I'm just on the RT app.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's just RT because, but I could be wrong. The Russian president says a suggestion by the MPs that would see a presidential term reset, thus allowing him to run again in 2024. So basically, like what they're saying in this article is that he changed it all so that he could run under the new system. And
But he
then,
hasn't said that he is, though, right?
uh, yeah, it
It
sounds like he,
resets. It basically resets his term limits. So like it's like a
right,
whole new term.
right. Well, he and basically he's saying that he would only run for the 2-term limitation set in the. I mean, this isn't like hard to believe. He kind of worked the system the last time around too.
Well, he's been working the system for a long time.
Yeah,
He just shuffles around the new positions
right,
while he's still calling the shots, and everyone knows it. And it's not. He doesn't even hide it. You know what I mean?
right. Yeah.
Switch between
So
president, prime minister, things like that.
yeah. So I don't know, but so it's cool in the long term, but it seems a little
Well,
manipulative.
here's the thing that's unpopular in the West, and what I believe. I actually believe that when you have a good leader who's proven to do the right things and to do right by their people, and in a lot of ways, I mean, I think Putin has done right by his own people in a lot of ways. He's really popular in Russia because of that. But like in America, we have, a 2-term Democrat, 2-term Republican, 2-term Democrat, and they're both trying to undo the shit the other one's doing. There's no direct goal that anyone's going for. It's just
Aside from making money for the military companies and shit,
yeah, all Wall Street, everyone. That's
all that stays the same.
that's the thing that they agree on. Yeah, yeah. Uh, we have Wall Street Democrats and Wall Street Republicans now, but in my opinion, I mean, like if you got a good leader who is popular, I don't see the point in removing him because they can get you through a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? They used to say, the best kind of government is like a monarchy with a good king. You know what I mean? But it's rare.
Yeah.
And
Mick, do you know who Mick West is? He's like a debunker. He was on the podcast a while back, but he was saying that like the goal would be like a global economy with a global benevolent dictator. So like they are always out for the best interest, but that's such like a huge cry from what we would actually end up getting in that situation.
well, I mean, maybe you get it even, but then that person dies, and then who knows what happens after that? There's wolves, and waiting in the shadows to take advantage of that. Look no further than Yugoslavia and Joseph Broz Tito.
Yeah, just
in
a,
the
a
early
side
90s.
a sidebar on that, just in case. I don't even know if there's anybody watching this or whatever, but pertaining to like the whole New World Order thing, like Mick West, he's like dude, he's the guy that he made Tony Hawk Pro Skateboarder. So you've heard of that, I'm assuming. But he was like the guy that made that, and he was the software designer for that company Neversoft. He owned Neversoft, and he sold his shares of Neversoft and retired, and now he just debunks like flat Earth or chemtrails or whatever. And it was funny on my podcast, him and I were talking about like having a one world government, and I was just thinking in my head like, dude, the conspiracy theorists that are listening to this, because everybody thinks he's like a paid government shill, So I'm like, the conspiracy theorists that are listening to this are probably like losing their minds right now because we're talking about that. But I don't know. He's pretty cool though.
Yeah, I mean, I think really, if mankind doesn't get wiped out by an external force or by ourselves, a one world government is the destiny of mankind. If we're going to leave this planet, would have to
Well,
be, I think, a global federation.
and it would make our
the most fair way to contribute to that.
and I think that our global interest should be to try to make the best possible outcome for every living human, which means that we should have our entire globe focused on bringing places like Africa up in the world and getting them clean fucking water, just so at least they have clean water.
Well,
And
China's doing that. That's
yeah, I
their
mean,
mission.
yeah, there's
They want to do it so that Africa can replace America as far as being the consumers of their products, I think. But it's still effectively they're doing that. But go ahead.
well, I just think that should be the goal of any humanist person, like anybody that wants like a successful humanity to, in the future, it would be a better way to get uh the world a little bit more universal, and try. I mean, the problem is like countries, in like the Middle East, and a lot of those countries live by a different way of life. So you'd have to slowly integrate different Western ideas. And that's like their biggest fear, which I guess is understandable if you're raised a certain way and grew up in that kind of moral, you know, relativist like society, I guess. I don't know. It's strange, but
Yeah, well, when you put it that way, when people put it that way, oh, we should be um, doing what's best for mankind, for the most people, blah blah blah. That it sounds really good, but I don't like to sort of define things by morality. I sort of try to define things by what is in the individual's best interest. And if you follow like libertarian thinking, like the teachings or the ideas of Ayn Rand, for example, then you'd think that what is in your best interest is to fuck over as many people as you can and look out for yourself, and just try to look for as many opportunities, to price gouge toilet paper or hand sanitizer or whatever,
dude,
but
wait, did you see that? Did you see that thing that I posted on my stories? I literally was just curious. I Amazon searched toilet paper, and like there was a 4-pack of like organic toilet paper for $75, Prime, so free shipping. But I was just
it is organic though.
and it is organic, so whatever the fuck that means. But I could not believe how expensive it was. Like there was some non-organic, not that I would ever use that. No, there's some non-organic toilet paper on there for like $20 for a 4-pack, but everything else really was sold out. And I don't understand. Can you enlighten me to the toilet paper craze? Like, what the fuck is going on with toilet paper in specific? Like,
Well, I mean, I don't know why everyone. It's like I mean, I have a friend who was stocked up on toilet paper months ago. She works for the state, and she's sort of privy to some things, saw some things coming, and um, I don't know how so many people like knew to get toilet paper. Like that's the thing everyone's worrying about. They're not worrying. It doesn't seem the food shelves aren't gone. People worried more about the food exiting them than the food entering them. Um, yeah, I, when it happened in Venezuela, it actually happened because businesses that produced toilet paper and paper towels were deliberately not selling it within Venezuela. They were selling them outside of Venezuela. There's proof of that. But they were withholding it from Venezuela because there's a class war been going on there for a while. The business class has been, well, certain segments of the business class has been resisting the Chavez legacy and the Maduro government because they don't want uh, they don't want anything privatized, essentially, or sorry, nationalized, essentially. Um, so that had like uh, there was real deliberate actions taken by the private sector there that caused that. Whereas here, it's just, I honestly, I think it has something to do with Venezuela. Like I'm thinking, oh, they ran out of toilet paper. Maybe we should get toilet paper. I don't know. I don't know why everyone thought of it at the exact same time.
I
Honestly,
I
why did
know.
everyone think that we're gonna run out of that?
Yeah,
I mean,
Kendra said that what she thinks is that someone made some kind of like a weird meme or something, and then all of a
yeah,
sudden it
it's
just
a
like,
viral idea.
yeah, yeah.
Is that you? Or is that me?
I think that's you.
Did it come from this room? The fuck? My phone? Oh, maybe my speaker. I don't know. I'm turning my speaker off. Oh,
Yeah.
no, that must have been the speaker. Oh, yeah, that's right. I always have my phone on silent, but I did not today. Let me turn that shit down. I was like, it has to be on silent. Yeah. So the what a meme is,
Yeah,
because you follow Richard Dawkins, right?
of course.
Yeah, yeah.
He's my god.
So yeah, it's
Just kidding.
so I guess it is a meme. The whole idea of hoarding toilet paper is a meme itself. You know what I mean? It's a viral idea that has been sustained and brought into permanent existence within their culture.
Yeah, I know. It's so weird though. It's just, I don't know, the whole idea of toilet paper. I just figured like canned tuna might go for spam or something that lives forever, or I don't know. I'm sure bullets and ammunition went too. I mean, people are fucking
Yeah.
crazy. But I heard, I have not verified this, so I don't want to say that this is true. But I heard that someone in Costco, at my local Costco, got stabbed, and the person that said it was there when it happened.
I
And
didn't know
I,
Coeur d'Alene was big enough for a Costco.
oh yeah, I mean,
What's the
we're not
population?
huge, but I think 75,000 or 100,000. So yeah,
That's
uh,
actually bigger than I thought.
yeah, it might even be bigger than that. I'm not sure. I'm sure it's bigger than that during the summer,
Hmm.
but yeah, someone got stabbed because they were purchasing the last of something. I don't know. It's crazy, but that could not be true because I haven't verified it yet. I tried finding like a news article on it or something, and I couldn't find anything. So um,
Hmm.
yeah.
They may probably just rumors, hearsay.
Well, this person said that she saw it in person.
Oh,
Yeah. She made a post about it on Facebook saying, "I was just in Costco. I'm not bullshitting you. I saw someone get stabbed over something." And I tried searching for it to see if it was true because that's such an insane claim, but I couldn't find anything. But I don't know, man. I mean, it's like
I want to know what it was that got stabbed over it. Yeah.
I do too. If it was something, I don't know, what would be worth stabbing somebody over? Like what could you
Um.
imagine being at Costco and finding that would be worth stabbing? Maybe like a not toilet paper, that's for sure. I'm just trying to think of something
Yeah.
better, like um, I don't
Maybe.
know, tri-tip.
Maybe. Try to. Yeah, they have good deals on meats there for sure. Trying to, trying to think. I don't know, man. Probably have really good deals on a lot of shit.
Yeah,
If it was the last tri-tip, I mean,
gotta get that protein.
yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So, but do you think that this is an overreaction from the people in the government? I mean, it is kind of insane that.
Overreaction from the government. I think the government's underreacting
Yeah,
slightly.
yeah.
But you mean by society, like by people going out and
I just mean
buying shit?
both. Yeah, I mean,
I see a lot of criticisms of people like, oh, it's ridiculous that that people got to go out and panic buy. I'm like, well, I went and bought some toilet paper and shit because I knew everyone else was, and it was gonna run out. Kind of have to. Well, some people are like, no, I'm just gonna sit here and protest that by not doing that, and then wipe my ass with my hand like Indians in India. To be clear.
yeah, yeah. So,
uh,
I mean, it's interesting though because I I think it's kind of an underreaction from the government as well. I'm curious to not to be conspiratorial, but I'm curious as to what information they have now that made them kind of kick it into gear, or if it was because the public was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" You know?
well, I really think that Donald Trump, I think is surrounded by people who probably just tell him a lot of the time what he wants to hear, and he doesn't want the stock market to crash. I think he was just hoping, Mike Pence has fucking had his team in there. They're holding hands and praying, trying to prevent the coronavirus from catching on here. God didn't come through for them. So he was like, fuck, it's really happening. The stock market's crashing. Everything's going to shit. So he realized begrudgingly that he has to do something at the last minute to honestly just to even save any chance of being reelected. Um, yeah, I don't know what 1.5 trillion, what you thought 1.5 trillion dollars injected into private sector is going to do. I mean, that's going to bunch of executives are going to cut themselves a check. It's going to contribute to the wrecking the U.S. petrodollar. That's really I think it was it's been on course to happen. New exchange currencies trying to replace the petro, such as the yuan or the gold-backed yuan, which I don't know what progress there's on that. Last I heard about that was a long time ago. But there's this is going to accelerate that process. Not only, but that's printing off 1.5 trillion dollars and just giving it to private sector businesses.
Well,
That's
I
off.
think that was actually just like a big repo market injection. I don't know if it was like
Was it
actually.
repo market?
Yeah. It was a big repo market injection. I don't think it. There's
What?
been
Hold
yeah
on. The repo market doesn't even need all that, I don't think. Well, if they do, that's another problem.
that, and it is a huge problem because they're just trying to cover the cost of bonds and stuff. So it is a really big deal. And like I was talking to a friend of mine today who was saying that he's like a banker, and he was saying that there's a bunch of misinformation around it, um, going around by like people that are actually senators as well, and that maybe don't understand the financial markets that well. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's like if we have to cover that stuff, it's because people aren't investing into the things that the government needs to cover their asses, which means that people aren't being as liberal as everybody thinks. And that is a sign, in my opinion, that the end is coming with that. And if we can't, like, the thing is we're always just like robbing Peter to pay Paul in the financial markets, and
Well, it's their whole economy is a
that's like
debt-based economy.
that's our entire economy. So
Mhm.
it has to come home eventually. And if the Fed continues to just inject trillions of dollars into the
It's
markets,
just digging the grave deeper.
yeah, because
you
what
know?
it's like if you have to go to a loan shark or something to get your money, so you get a loan from the loan shark to pay off your credit cards, and then all of a sudden now you've got your credit card bills and the loan shark bills, so then you have to borrow from
Get
like a
another loan
pawn.
shark.
Yeah, borrow from them to pay those two. And if the government's doing that to cover their asses on this stuff, well, if today they need 1.5 trillion and then people pull more money and they can't cover more of the bonds and stuff like that, um, then they're going to need what, 2 trillion tomorrow, and the Fed's just going to keep on upping the ante to try to cover that shit. I mean, I don't.
And another thing is the banks and Wall Street in general expects bailouts, so they're doing things with the anticipation they're going to get bailed out anyways. So it's really
Right, and that's
we're
so it is kind of misinformation, because a lot of people, I think, were under the impression that it was just going straight into like the banks or the markets, but it is in an indirect way, because once shit does hit the fan, we're going to bail out the banks again.
Mhm.
More chances than not. Could you see like Trump just like, oh, you know what, sorry guys, it's time to fail, like that's not going to happen.
Yeah,
So
I was talking to my mom about this, and I was pointing out to her, I'm like, you guys all think that this economy is so great. You brag about the Trump economy all the time, but anyone who gives a shit and understands not even that much, but just enough, can see that the economy has been fragile the whole time. I mean, don't get me wrong, he inherited a fragile economy. I think Obama contributed to setting it up that way after, by refusing to hold the banks accountable, and no one was even really making sure that the bailout money went to you know helping to make sure this doesn't happen again. Um, but it, oh, I lost my train of thought. Trying to think, where was I?
sorry, I was
Mom,
muted. Yeah,
Trump.
you're
That's
talking
okay.
about bailing out the banks. You're talking with your parents about bailing out the banks,
Yeah, there's something I was gonna get
or
to,
your
but then I
mom.
started explaining a bunch of setting it up, and then I went too long, and I forgot where I started.
Well, that's okay. We used to party a lot, so um
Yeah,
yeah, I know.
it'll probably come to me in like 2 minutes. I'll be like, oh yeah.
I wonder what all of us like seeing kids are gonna be like when we're 60. It's gonna be a
You know,
real big mess.
it's funny is, to me, it's really weird when people say "scene kids," referring to people listening to electronic music, dance music, or bass music or whatever. Because to me, scene kids were like
Like
emo,
screamo
punk, and
and
metal
shit.
kids from like
Yeah,
2004, 2005. That was scene kids back in
yeah.
the
That
day.
that's what
That
that
was
I was kind of into all that shit when I was younger too. Uh,
Yeah. I used to go to a lot of concerts, like
Yeah, I mean,
2, 3 concerts a week probably.
I was obsessed with that.
Metal
I
and
could
shit.
totally see you being obsessed with that. But so let's keep on talking about the economy failing, because
Oh yeah, yeah. This is the exciting shit.
our ADD
Um,
has gotten us way out of there.
yeah. So one thing I try to think about is like, what, and it should really be looking. It's, nothing will apply straight across, but what happened during the Great Depression? What happened in 2008? Because I was a fucking basically a kid in 2008. I was really young adult, didn't know what was going on at all. And I feel like that recession didn't affect me much. It affected a lot of people, mainly people who had money. I think people who had investments and but um I don't I'm concerned about, I mean, I think Boise will do better than a lot of places because we still have cheap labor, and so a lot of it might even accelerate uh, some people moving here, people moving their businesses here, because it might, want to be one of the only places that has anything going on if it gets bad enough. But I also think about like places like Detroit, how much shittier is it going to get there? Places
Yeah.
like Cleveland, um, it's hard to imagine how this is going to affect. Like my family's already, I think they might be quarantining.
Mhm.
My parents are old. My grandpa is older.
Well, and they're Mormon, right? So they've probably been planning for this for like a decade.
Yeah, yeah.
I
So
want
that's
to.
nice. I got set up on the food for that. So
I gotta address. Don Alba commented on it, and he was saying that he thinks that the disease come from the way people grow and raise food. Well, yeah, Don. Like, um, I'm literally making a video about this tomorrow because I've seen so many conspiracies come out. I'm gonna make a video and put it on YouTube about this, about just like the fallacious thinking that goes with conspiracy theorizing about this virus, because it's like I understand the need to try to apply agency to something, and to a certain extent there is a little bit of agency because it's irresponsible agricultural practices in a way. But this has been going on ever since we started farming and agriculture like 11,000 years ago. uh, Viruses have been crossing over to humans. This is like how the flu came, this is how the plague came, this is how disease comes. Viruses are, their whole mission is to transition over to be used by anything that will, the cells will allow it to be in, because that's how they reproduce. They hijack cells and then they reproduce in the body. So if they don't find the ability to do that, then they're going to like go extinct or whatever, so the virus is just doing its own version of survival of the fittest, trying to find as many hosts to take over and get sick and replicate in. So
inefficient versions of the virus
yeah.
don't continue to survive.
Right. And so like we can do better farming and agricultural practices to try to curb some of this, but it's always going to happen no matter what. I'm not saying that we should be irresponsible, but this is going to be something that we're going to deal with for the rest of biological life. Viruses and other bacteria and stuff, like they are just as much of a arbiter of the world as we are, so
Mm-hmm.
the conspiracy thinking on this is just kind of lame, because like Russia and China and the United States keep like polio and smallpox on hand. They have it in a freezer somewhere just in case someone tries to use it as a biological weapon so they can make a vaccine really quick. But they keep them on hand, and those things kill like 30 to 40%. So it's not even, why would they use something that's like the common cold, maybe a little bit worse?
There's more effective.
Yeah, there's way
If
more
it were
effect.
going to
Or
be used for that,
why
yeah.
wouldn't they just do something better? Like, why use a virus? Or I'm not. I mean, that's a good way to do war. Don't get me wrong. But I just think that like in the world that we live in, with all of the technology and all of the cameras and all, the way that everything is, to do biological warfare in that way, where they make kind of like a virus that comes along naturally. It's already come along like 3 or 4 times in the last 100 years. Coronavirus is a very popular virus. The common cold, I think, is a coronavirus. So this,
Isn't it rhinovirus or what's something? Sorry, go ahead.
uh, but I think they're in the same family.
Probably, yeah.
This is just a different version of the same thing.
Mhm.
So that's what happens. Like they mutate and they get people sick. That's their job. And if there was a purpose to the world, that's their purpose, is to get
Mhm.
people sick and spread their DNA. So
That's
just
a
like
good point.
ours. Yeah. I don't know. So I'm going to make a video tomorrow because like, I've had a few people email me about this, asking my opinion on it and stuff. And it's just like reasoning that is totally human. Like we always try to find agency in everything that we do,
Yeah.
and sometimes there's none needed. So
And it goes back to what your friend, the guy you talked to, was saying about people, that it's not right, especially in this country, to quarantine a city or things like that. And it is something I think that the American identity would struggle with because it's not how we do things here, but that's what you do. Like you said, it's going to happen. It's going to happen from time to time, no matter what. These things are going to flare up and start up and try to spread. But responding with a centrally planned and organized, you know, I think there's different methods, but it does come down to taking actions like quarantining a city, building hospitals overnight, over the course of a week, moving resources where they need to be. That takes central planning. You're not going to do it without that. Even this country, what we're going to do is when it is centrally planned, not to the extent that China's is, and that's why it won't be as effective, I don't think. But it's the Chinese people.
Well, even
I don't think they're upset about what the government has done. I think they're grateful. I think they're glad that they stepped in and took care of shit.
and we're
Go ahead.
seeing what it's doing in Italy and Spain now. Spain's numbers. Actually, I guess I can share my screen and well, let me get this thing pulled up. But yeah, so like the numbers in Spain and Italy are just like crazy, man. And they have gone into quarantine mode,
Yeah,
but it
the
might have been
whole
a little bit
states.
too late,
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to share my screen. And yeah, so this is the number. Can you see my screen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so this is the current numbers according to worldometers.info, which seems to be a pretty accurate representation of the numbers. And it shows in Italy, they have 175 new deaths, and new cases it's gone up, almost 25%. But did I just do bad math? I think I did bad math. Well, yeah, almost 25%. So I did okay math. But and so I just think I don't think I think a lot of people, it's one of those things where we naturally have the tendency to try to look look at the bright side of things. It's like I don't know, it doesn't seem like it's real until it's real. So we're gonna see what happens. I hope it doesn't hit like crazy, but who knows?
I had heard that Italy has the highest percentage of elderly citizens. I just checked, and it looks like Japan is, but Italy is up, I think, number 2. So, yeah, Japan and Italy. How is Japan doing with
That's what
deaths?
I was
Do you
just
have it on the
wondering
list?
too. Yeah.
I think
I'll share
they're
it.
not doing good. If I'm not mistaken, they're handling it pretty poorly.
So Japan's not too bad. 70 new cases, 804 total cases. So that's pretty good for what their population is, right? I mean, they've got a pretty big
That's
population.
almost a 10%. It's like 8%, I think.
Of their population? Don't they have a?
No, the deaths. So no.
Oh, yeah. Oh, gotcha.
Cases.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's only because there's a lot of people. You have to assume there's a lot of people who are getting the virus who aren't being tested. So the numbers could actually be much higher. Then again, by the end of everything, it could turn out that the numbers of deaths, the percentage could end up being higher. I don't
Yeah,
know
that's the hard thing to calculate, because I mean, basically, if you want, I don't know. I mean, it's such a hard thing to calculate. If you go off of China, I think China's could be a pretty reasonable way to calculate it. Looks like they've got 80,000 total cases and 66,000 have recovered, so that's good. But I mean, wow, yeah. Italy is pretty fierce. But yeah, if
it's numbers for China are so fucking good. 10 new deaths, like that's for such a big population, and they have.
Well, yeah, 20 new cases. I mean, that's got to be hopeful. And I think SARS was a coronavirus, and
yeah, SARS and MERS.
Yeah, and the virologist guy that I had on the podcast was saying that basically what happens is these things kind of like they come really strong, and then our natural immunity
Good.
starts to to block out the virus, and the virus just slowly starts to die out. And unless it can mutate stronger quickly, it'll just kind of start to die out. So
Hmm. Yeah. Early on, I was hearing a lot of claims that it was mutating and changing its behavior in surprising ways. I don't really hear that now. It sounds like, I mean, honestly, it could kind of fizzle out. Like this could get figured out. China's learned a lot. They're sending people to Italy to help them figure it out. Uh, I don't know how, uh, but I also, I think it could turn out to for our country be a really really long term bad thing.
well, what I'm
Um,
hoping personally is that this fizzles out and then it gives everybody ammunition to try to change our healthcare system and to
mhm.
try to better understand the way that viruses work and how it affects us. Because we're like, I was saying this on the podcast with that virologist guy too, but it seems like every time that I have an expert in a certain field, they all say like, we really need to worry about this thing because it could kill all of humanity. The virologist says that about viruses, and then you'll have a physicist or an astrophysicist say that about meteorites or asteroids. And
Whatever, yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Whatever
So
they're
anything
focused on, yeah.
that's in their field, there's like these huge things. And then when you put them all together, there's like nonstop shit trying to kill humanity. And
Hmm.
um, we have such a small window that it is our life. Like we're so unprepared for any sort of catastrophic event. Like we don't think that way, we don't think about an asteroid killing all of humanity or an EMP. Holy shit, dude. If there was an EMP like the one that was back in, I think 19, was it 1920, the 1920s, there was like an EMP from a solar burst that took out like all of Canada's electrical grid. Now if we had that, we would be fucked.
Yeah, can you
So,
imagine communications going down at
oh,
any time?
at any
Can you
time,
imagine it
yeah.
going down now?
Our
That would
nuclear,
be
oh yeah,
wild.
totally, yeah. And our nuclear, all of our nuclear warhead systems, like who knows how the fuck I don't know. That's like maybe an outlandish thought, like maybe that could
I
cause.
don't think those would get sent up, but apparently detonating a nuclear bomb in the atmosphere would create an EMP shockwave that would knock out all of our comms. And I've heard rumors from conspiracy theorists that Russia has been working on technology to do that.
Did you
I
see
don't know if
the
that's true or not, but
Did you see the hypersonic missiles that they were testing over there? Like Putin
yeah,
was watching? That was fucking crazy, dude.
yeah, they're
Uh,
they're leading in hypersonic missiles right now.
man,
America kind of didn't see it coming. We're trying to catch up now.
right.
They have some crazy shit missile technology. That's really where their focus has been. We've been building an air force and things like that. They've been developing technology that makes our technology obsolete, or at least attempting to. Um,
Well, and we've
but
been
this,
spending a shitload of money in Afghanistan and Iraq and all of those
mhm.
wars.
Oh, we spend so much money on this stuff because so like Russia, most of they have their weapons industry is a combination of state-owned enterprises and privately owned private sector companies. But because of that, especially because the state owns some of the weapons manufacturing companies, they're paying pennies on the dollar compared to what we're paying to paying private companies, and they're making a profit off of it. Not only that, but the private companies end up having control over our government because of just the lobbying system and everything, how that works. They don't have that issue over there. The government tells them what to do
Well, that
rather than
was
them telling the government what to do.
yeah, that was kind of like the thing with the press conference that Trump just had. It's like, yeah, everything that you're saying sounds really good, but you got to wonder how much money the Walmart guy and the CVS guy and the fucking Walgreens guy, they're just sitting there like, yeah, we're gonna do all we can to help you guys, and then give you a fat bill for all of this.
Hmm.
I mean, that was
Yeah,
like the only thing I could think about when they were having that press conference was how much is this going to cost taxpayers?
hmm it's going to cost us. It doesn't while these corporations are not paying sometimes anything in taxes. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's pretty fucked up. But about back to the healthcare thing you mentioned. Hopefully, this opening up a conversation about our healthcare system. The next Democratic debate is tomorrow. I'm fucking hoping. and Bernie Sanders really takes an aggressive, clear, defined position on what on coronavirus, what could be done differently, and highlighting how effective Medicare for all would be at um, aiding in preventing this thing from spreading and helping people get tested early. There's just so many different things. Um, Not having it has been a problem for, I'm sure you've heard people trying to get tested and it costs too much, so they don't. So hopefully in the debate tomorrow, I'm hoping he really takes the gloves off and just leans across the podium and just punches Biden in the jaw. But
I think he might, man. It seems like just based
to me,
off of his press conferences he's been having, he seems like
mhm,
he's pretty energetic, and it almost seems like he's a little pissed off about the way things are being handled. So
it's what he has to do, but also I'm worried that he's thinking that if he goes and badmouths Biden and tears him down and makes him look like, stupid and foolish, then if Biden wins anyways, they're going to do the same thing. They say, "Oh, well, you made it." So they're blaming him for criticizing Hillary too much during the primary in 2016, and that being a contributor to why she lost. Which is bullshit. That's what you're supposed to do. Bernie Sanders is the only one who's ever caught such flack for doing what you're supposed to do in a primary.
well, yeah, and then I mean he backed her though,
Yeah, and
and knowing that the DNC fucked him.
yeah, and he did more showing and support and rallies, actually going out there and rallying on behalf of Hillary than she did for Barack Obama. So that's a stupid. It's just for people wanting to. The Democratic Party just wants to pass the blame at every opportunity. Don't get me wrong, most people do. Most individual peoples and most organizations, but it's just really, really to me like pathetic, and I feel like a lot of times that a lot of people are moving away from the Democratic Party for that reason, but then sometimes it feels like it's really strong. I don't really know. I
I
guess
don't
we'll
think it's
find out in the
strong.
general election. Yeah,
I
I don't
think it's
think so
weak as
either.
fuck, dude. I think it's so weak because I don't know, man. It's weird. It's like all of our age people are apathetic, and um I I mean, I had someone really, really close to me. Well, she's not gonna care. I had Kendra be like, "What the fuck is the point of voting?" I'm not gonna. I don't even see the point in voting in the
General election.
general election because they just screw us over. And I'm like, well, stop saying they screw us over. It's we are screwing ourselves over, and America, like I was really depressed when Bernie Sanders got crushed by Biden just because I really didn't understand why. I just couldn't wrap my head around it. But not everybody thinks like I do, and not everybody thinks like anybody else does. So we have to just try to educate and like if Biden ends up, what I was trying to say to Kendra is if Biden ends up being the front runner, then we have to support him because at least at a minimum, Biden has somewhat better traits for, like abortion rights and treats transgender people better and that kind of shit. And that's the stuff that I really care about, is I want, I like those kinds of progressive ideals, like I want those people to feel safe in society and not
Yeah,
oppressed.
I see what you're saying, and a lot of people feel that way, and even Bernie Sanders does. I actually don't really feel that way. I don't really, because if you do that, then you're reinforcing the system that fucked you over, and you're saying no matter how many times you fuck us over, we're still gonna support you because it's what we have to do. You know
Okay,
what I
but
mean?
the alternative though is what? Just not voting or voting for Bernie?
No, I would say not voting.
Really? Oh man,
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't not. I voted for Clinton last time. Like I didn't want to. I really didn't. I don't like Clinton at all. I think she's. I almost think that we might have been worse off, honestly. You know what I mean? Um, Maybe. I
Yeah,
don't know. Maybe.
yeah, I did think
She's
so
such a
before.
she's such a war hawk, you know. I was thinking
I
like,
did think so before, but then all
yeah.
the bullshit Trump has done with Venezuela and Iran and shit. It's like, well, that's why they
And
got Hillary too.
financially, I was thinking like the one benefit of Trump is that maybe he was gonna like control the budget a little bit. I knew he
Budget
wasn't
hawk,
gonna. What?
or what do they call it? There's a word, not budget hawk. It's deficit hawk. But yeah, go ahead.
I was hoping, I was thinking
Hmm.
at least maybe he would actually start to try to figure out ways to spend less money, make more money or whatever, but he's not doing that at all,
Yeah,
and
Republicans always say that shit,
yeah.
but they never practice it. It's only for the election. You know what I mean?
Here's the other, sorry, I don't want to forget this. The other benefit of Biden potentially is that he could pick someone cool as a running mate, and then I mean, he's not doing so well.
He's not going to pick someone cool as a running mate. I don't
Who,
think.
who do you think that he would pick?
Um, well, those people are tossing around Kamala Harris. Some people are tossing around.
Oh God, Kamala Harris. If that's the case, I would have a hard time too.
What's her
But
name? Stacey Abrams is the other one that people are throwing around. I've heard some other names too. But it seemed the general consensus is that he's going to probably pick a woman of color because there's a lot of suggestions, a lot of public, like uh, openly people, Democratic officials or people in the Democratic organizations going out publicly and saying that he should pick a female colored running mate. Some people are even saying Klobuchar, um, but
well,
yeah,
Klobuchar's
I
not
don't know.
colored, but
I know exactly she's not a person of color, but but woman is like the female is the most thing that people are driving at, but then a person of color is also thing, and so I think there's a good chance he'll do that. I nodded. Uh, I definitely think Kamala Harris is not good. I don't see him picking anyone. We would.
yeah, Kamala
Why?
Harris
Why would he?
seems. I actually last when the Democrats were starting to debate and stuff, I was thinking Kamala Harris was going to end up being high up on the list, but man, she's just not with it at all. I mean,
Yeah,
I would never have wanted
she
that.
couldn't debate.
Yeah, she couldn't debate. But I didn't like her. She just seems so slimy to me. She reminds me of Hillary Clinton,
Hmm. Hmm.
but
Yeah. And I think that honestly the DNC is probably going to be the ones picking behind the scenes. It seems kind of like Joe Biden is just sort of a stooge or a puppet that they're pushing through, trying to keep him from falling off a stage, and trying to keep him from interacting with the public as much as possible, trying to get him out of debates, and then I think other people are intending to rule vicariously through him because I don't think he has what it takes to function really
yeah.
as a person wielding power. It just seems I don't know how people are supporting him despite his horrible public appearances, lashing out at would-be supporters. I guess
Isn't
none of them are
that's kind
really
of like a
supporters.
side effect of Alzheimer's too, right? Isn't that?
He seems senile.
Yeah.
He seems like someone who, like a curmudgeon, like an old fucking, like, oh, the youth today, no respect, that kind of shit. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I,
he
I mean, that
so
time that he said to the guy, like, you want to arm wrestle or whatever.
no,
I
he
don't know,
said
man.
push-ups.
Push
We'll do
ups. So yeah, push up
competition right now.
competition.
Yeah, man, you throw out your shoulder, dude. Come on. I mean, the other guy, I think he was saying it because the other guy looked like he was out of shape. But
Yeah.
I'm sure you heard one of some guy from a union in Michigan approach him somewhere and mention the fact that Biden had said in Texas with Beto O'Rourke that he was going to take your guns away. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That was what he said. He called him out for it. He was like, I didn't say that. This isn't where he said one of my favorite lines, which was dog face pony soldier. He said something similar, though. He called this guy a horse face liar and some other shit. And it's like, how how the fuck does anyone see that or hear that? And not like, I mean, he's not worse than Donald Trump in some ways, but he's honestly not as with it mentally as Donald Trump, and that's not saying that much because Donald Trump is not.
Oh, dude, but the
I don't,
thing is, here's the thing. Donald Trump is going to run circles around him on the debate stage. You
yeah,
know what I mean? And so it's not even, if Joe Biden gets in there, it's not even a question as to who's going to win. I mean, Donald Trump
Donald Trump can finish his sentence without stuttering, for one.
Donald Trump is hilarious. I mean, Donald Trump, I love listening to Donald Trump debates. He's the funniest. And people like you and I really care about policy and economics and all these things. The average person just is like, whoa, that guy he really says it like he feels it. He doesn't hold back anything, man. He'd be he's going to be great to deal with those leaders, you know? And I mean, yeah, but I still think personally, and I understand if you disagree with me on this, but I still think that voting is important because, dude, last election cycle, didn't like 55% of people not vote, or 45%? I can't.
I think it was more than that. I think very small percent of the electorate votes. Let me look it up.
I think it's 45% voted last election cycle, but if it's lower than that, then that is just, I mean, dude, like, how can we demand change and not vote? It doesn't really, I don't know, I don't get it.
Well, the thing is, most people, and this goes down to what I talk about a lot, which is how tightly controlled information is. People don't really know what's going on. I mean, so a lot of vote, like, the elections are just, it's public relations, publicity campaigns trying to just fight over the minds of American people and convince us of whatever is true. None of they're not really like running on merits. It's all just a manipulation, you know. It's just a here I'm pulling up the percentage of voter turnout in 2016. Oh no, that's more than I thought. It looks like, yeah, you're about right. Looking at the
What was it?
summary here, it looks like 54.2%.
Voted or didn't vote?
It's, for some reason, it's taking a long time to pull up. I was just reading that in the summary here. Oh no, it says 61.4% on this other Pew Research, which is really reliable for this. 61.4% 2016.
61% voted?
Yeah, 61.4.
Wow, that's higher than I thought.
Yeah, it's much higher than I thought, honestly.
That's crazy. Well, good. Oh shit! drop the mic.
Not on purpose.
Not on purpose. No, I wasn't being cool.
Yeah,
So,
but like I was saying, you know, it's people just don't know what's going on, and it's really easy to convince emotional people to believe certain things if you appeal to our, you know, our unique what we think is important, what we think is a virtue, and things like that, you know. And you know, it just, for example, I mean, just look at Trump. He's so blatantly, to anyone who cares and who cares to know the truth, he's very clearly not, like, my parents were super Christian, and we've talked about this before, and they think that if Jesus was alive, that he would want them to vote for Trump. You know what I mean? And when Trump is very obvious to me that he just says shit so that people will vote for him. You know, like the American Make America Great hat, trucker hat. He's never driven a fucking truck. You fucking kidding me? When has he ever swung a hammer or used a fucking drill? I guarantee you. I mean, I don't guarantee, but probably never.
yeah.
Probably never. It's just a way of saying, look, I'm like you when I'm not. You know what I mean? At all. And I don't give a shit about your interests. And he hasn't at all. Except for the cultural interests. That's really more of his dynamic. He's defender of white Christendom culture, you know, in this country.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. I think that it's really strange, like uh how he goes like his press conference on Friday. He was half asleep. I thought he was sick. I thought maybe he had coronavirus or something. And then
Mhm.
this morning I was watching his press conference and I was like, dude, he's so with it and he's so on it. I mean, he's got to do drugs, right? He has to do Adderall or something. I don't understand how he's always so off and on. But
Apparently, he says he doesn't drink. I think.
oh yeah, I know he doesn't drink, but I don't drink either. But I've done my fair share of other things. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
um
sent you that video of Roger Stone. He looked
oh,
like he was on
he
meth
was
for
he
sure,
was
didn't he?
tweaking, dude. That was
Grinding
so
his teeth and shit.
yeah. I know. I That was crazy. I mean, did he not? I wonder if he didn't think that. How can you not think that that's going to get released to the public?
I don't know what that was about, honestly. I don't. That was
That was
really
so
fucking weird.
strange. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but I mean, it was interesting though hearing Trump this morning though, because he was so on it. He was really quick, talking fast, and then making jokes, answering questions, and I thought he.
Bernie Sanders is like that, but he's like kind and
Or,
pleasant.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
I
That's
know.
why I'd love to see them on a stage because he's quick. When the moderators come at him try to get him on something, or if someone one of the in the primary debates, if someone tries to insult him, he bounces back with the response, but never something that's like harsh. It's always something that's funny, but like innocent and just bounces, sort of just bounces it off of him. It's why I would think it would be really good to see him and Trump debate. I don't think we're gonna see that. I think we're gonna
Yeah.
see Joe Biden get slapped around.
Oh
But
yeah, that's good. That'll be entertaining at least. But Bernie Sanders is kind of like the guy that, if you were a female, he's like the guy that you'd want to settle down with, and Trump's the guy that you party with on New Year's Eve and have like a careless hookup with or whatever.
did you know Biden had a brain aneurysm?
No,
I think he had a couple of them actually in the 80s or something like that.
when?
I think, and
Uh,
hold on,
I,
let me check it.
Not recently though.
No, 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 no.
Interesting.
Yeah, his history with his wife and kids and everything, right?
No.
I'm surprised this doesn't come up more because it would um get I feel like it would get more sympathy votes for him. But a long time ago, his wife and at least one of his children died in a car wreck when he was young.
Oh,
Um,
dude, I did know that actually. I forgot. That's so sad. I do remember that.
yeah, it is actually, I'm gonna vote for him now. I'm just kidding. But speaking at like so a conference with Vice President Joe Biden, told a sometimes serious and sometimes jocular story about the two brain surgeries he needed in 1988 to deal with cranial aneurysms. Biden told the White House audience, "They take a saw and they cut your head off. They literally had to take the top of my head off." He also recounted that he was being wheeled into surgery. He asked the neurosurgeon, "What are my chances of getting off this table completely normal?" The surgeon told Biden he had a better chance of living. He had a better chance of living. Oh wait, yeah, and that the chance was in the 35 to 50% range. So yeah, he had a couple. If I mean, I haven't. This is just him talking about it. There's probably some hard data on it somewhere.
Hmm.
Um,
Well,
Here's
he
an actual
seemed.
article from 1988 from the New York Times. I'm just gonna send this to you for you to look on your own time, just because I'm sure
Okay.
you're probably interested in it.
Yeah, he seems like he just within the last couple of years started to decline. You know, I mean, before that he seemed
Yeah,
he's
under
always
the
been a
Obama
little creepy,
presidency, he
but
was. Well, yeah, I mean, he's I think he's always been shady, but like you look at him younger, he had the gift of gab. He was really good at talking. He had passion in when it was required when he would speak. He ran for president a few times, but under the Obama years, that was the peak. Really, I think he had the accumulated knowledge of those years of experience and working with people, and he's not lying when he says he knows people. He has connections. Obviously, he has connections all over the world in Ukraine and China. Shady ass connections, but um, he yeah, something happens after the Obama in the last 4 years. In the last 4 years, he lost his marbles.
Has a Warren figured out who she's gonna back yet, or
I don't think she's gonna say anything. She
huh?
doesn't. I don't think she wants to back Sanders, but I don't think she wants to ruin her career any more than she has by backing someone other than Sanders. Um, she needed to by now already, if she was going to, and so yeah, I don't think. I think we could pretty much just forget about Warren.
When can they announce their running mates or potential running mates? I guess.
I think they could have announced them at any time. Could have
Man,
announced
I mean,
them.
you would think that Sanders would come out and announce someone cool to try to get some more votes with him. And did you see that Yang endorsed Biden?
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Isn't that
Especially,
crazy
especially when
for everything that he stands for?
yeah.
I mean,
Well,
he's particularly said, "I'm not going to endorse anybody unless they take UBI forward." And then he backs Biden, who's the furthest thing from something like
not going
UBI.
to, hasn't said anything like that, and he's not going to.
Yeah.
It's pretty fucked up. But you know, he's got a position as a course as not what's the word? He's working for CNN as an analyst and commentator, and I haven't seen him on there yet. It seems like he's being assimilated into the establishment.
Hmm.
The
Yeah, I
DNC
mean,
establishment.
his followers must just be I'm losing their mind. I have a Yang sticker. It's coming off. Yeah.
I mean,
So
we'll see what happens in the future. I mean, if when he got a job with CNN, I was like, okay, he's gonna push forward and try to bring his ideas into the mainstream. But then backing Joe Biden, well, it's like, okay, that just seems, disingenuous. Seems
it's
like,
strange. It's very
yeah,
strange.
it's unfortunate. I still think he changed the game. I still think he'll be in, but I think he might have ruined his reputation as far as trust goes by things like that. And if he continues doing things like that, he's going to continue to break trust with his core.
I'm wondering if maybe
Supporters.
it's some kind of like in with the DNC so that way he can run with their support next time or something, you know?
Yeah, and yeah, like it's kind of like, Bernie Sanders has cooperated with the DNC way more than he should have. I think.
Yeah, well, and that hasn't done anything for him. I mean, it's so strange. Yeah. So what do you
But
think?
Biden,
Go ahead.
go ahead. I was going to say not Biden, but Yang doesn't want to get rid of billionaires. He doesn't want to get rid of rich. He is a rich person.
Yeah.
He's not a billionaire, I don't think, but he's a multimillionaire. I'm pretty sure. I guess I know. Yeah, he is. I know he is.
I guess technically Sanders is too, but
and also, yeah, he's an old ass senator. All you have to do to be a millionaire as an old ass senator is to not be fucking horrible with your money. You know what I mean?
yeah.
I mean, they make a good fucking salary. They make a $250,000.
Well, and he wrote a book, and I think that's what made him most of his money. But
yeah, what was I saying before that? Shit, I had something juicy. Well, that's all. Yeah, I can't remember. But,
well, wait, you were gonna say something about Joe Biden though. Now you just said juicy. Now I gotta know.
No, I misspoke when I said Joe Biden. I meant to say Yang. But I can't remember what it was.
Yeah. So you know how like a lot of people have this perception of Bernie Bros or whatever. What do you think that's all about? Like, why do you think that Bernie Sanders supporters are and Bernie Sanders himself are cast off as kind of like this ultra? I guess people compare them to Trump supporters, which is insane to me.
Well,
and I mean, I am a Bernie Sanders supporter, so that's maybe why it's insane. Is like I'm inside the bubble or something. But
I don't support. I trust Bernie Sanders, but I don't support Bernie Sanders. I support the platform that he's fighting for. You know what I mean? That's where many people are. It's not Bernie Sanders that I'm necessarily loyal to. I just want his vision to come to reality in this country, because the policies he's talking about, that's what I want. And this Bernie bro narrative really seems to come from, I think, people who don't know what the fuck they're talking about, encountering people who do know what the fuck they're talking about, and not having any way to respond because they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. So they just have to say, oh, these guys are mean. They're not mean. You're just a dumbass and you got called out for it. You know what I mean? I see that
Yep.
shit all the time, and just people want to focus so much on people being mean to them, and rather than focusing on what it is that they're actually talking about, they want to obsess over that because they can't talk about the actual thing because they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that goes for everyday people, but it goes for CNN moderate or CNN correspondents and commentators too. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. So people on Twitter call them out, and people who are working class and people who don't have a college education necessarily are out, schooling them. So they're just like, oh, these guys are mean. Fuck them. It's all they can say. That's my opinion. And I think if someone's mean to you, who gives a fucking shit? Honestly, did they hit you? You know what I mean? Did they get you fired from your job? Like, unless it's affecting you in real life, stop giving so much of a shit about your feelings. You know what I mean? And just focus on what it is that you're actually debating on or talking about, or what's important. That's not important. Obsessing
Yeah.
over that. That's a way of avoiding the actual discussion and the important the important discussion and details that need to be worked out in the general conversation of American society.
Yeah. So, what do you think is going to happen with the economy? I mean, do you think that this is going to be an actual recession? Or do you think that this is all in like a short-term view of, just this coronavirus? Maybe let's say the coronavirus lasts for 5 months. Do you think that month 6, it's going to be business as usual and industry is going to continue on where it left off?
I don't think it's the coronavirus that. I mean, the coronavirus is the catalyst, but the stage has been set. The stage was set in 2008, and it never, nothing had ever been done to change the way our economy works into a way where we wouldn't end up in the situation again. And there's been a continual artificial, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Like an artificial upholding, artificial foundation like that's been positioned underneath our economy to keep the ceiling from collapsing in. It's been destined to happen for a while. If it didn't happen now, it's going to happen a month from now, sometime in the foreseeable near future.
Yeah.
So I honestly, given the fragility and the hollowness of our economy compared to how it was in 2007, I think it's going to be worse than the recession in 2008. And that's really fucking bad because, there was a great deal of time between the Great Depression and the recession of 2008. And it's just 12 years later, we find ourselves back in a similar position, but it's going to be much worse. We have so many markets that are collapsing. We have, the student debt bubble. We have, I'm sure you know about shale and natural gas right now, um, where it's too expensive it's not even worth extracting it anymore because of the price is too low and the cost is too high to extract it. We have the new oil war between Saudi Arabia and well, I guess it's natural gas, I think, and Russia. There's just so many things going on, and not only that, but our military's extended across the world, and now we're dropping bombs in Iraq again. And when in the first place, and I mentioned this earlier, when everything went down, I need to grab the details before I talk about this. I'm not going to say that I know this or that I'm super comfortable saying this, but there's reporting coming out, has been coming out relatively recently, that the group that attacked the base in Iraq that killed the U.S. contractor that instigated or initiated the sequence of events that led to General Qasem Soleimani being assassinated by a drone in Baghdad, that the organization or the group that was responsible for the death of that contractor was not Kataib Hezbollah, that it was ISIS. And I don't, like I said, I trust the journalists that I got this information from, but I do not know the details, so I cannot say. Um, but yeah, it's something. I'll next time we talk, I'll have dove into that more. I'll dig up the details on that.
Yeah, it definitely feels like people aren't prepared for the reality of how this is going to affect industry. And I mean, it seems like the United States could just pump money into the system and inflate the shit out of it and make, you know what I'm saying, like make it seem okay. But the problem is that the other countries aren't going to do that.
Well, the other
And
countries are
so
doing that. I think. I think there's other countries doing that. But also that doesn't fix the problem. It just puts it off longer, and that's all we've been doing is just trying to hold it, prevent this from actually collapsing, extending the time that we have to deal with it, but while not actually coming up with a solution to prevent this from happening in the future. You know what I mean? It's just a way of
right.
putting it off on future administrations and what?
No, I was agreeing with you. No.
Oh yeah. So, what was the original question?
Well, we were talking about other countries not doing what we're doing, but I mean, like, we can do it and inflate the market and continue on just artificially inflating the market, but I don't see how other countries can do it the same way that we are doing it, because we don't have the same um we have a different type of consumerism and a different type of economy than other countries do, you know.
Well, like
Like,
Venezuela had to print off. That's how they've been. That's why they have hyperinflation. Because they're printing money off to cover, but they were printing money off to cover, debts they couldn't pay and things like that.
mhm,
So, and that's what caused the devaluation of their currency. Our currency hasn't seen a significant devaluation as a result of quantitative easing or just the, you know, open, unannounced QE that they're doing in the repo market. None of this seems to be affecting the value of the U.S. Dollar, but that I think it's because of our position as the exchange currency of the world, and especially in the oil sector. but So,
sorry.
but that's what I was saying. Is it as if some other big players show up in the exchange currency, uh, try to fulfill that role or compete with us in that way? Uh, it's possible that the value of our currency will just fall through the floor. That's real. That's worse than a stock market crash. That's worse than any of the shit
Yeah.
that that is happening now.
Well, it's saying that the oil has hit the biggest decline,
Yeah,
and
30% in one day, I think.
yeah, that's what it was. That's what I'm reading right here. It's 25% is what I'm reading right here, but
Mhm.
um, that couldn't have happened at a worse time.
Yeah, but this is a specific thing. This is because Russia decided not to join Saudi Arabia in curbing production to get oil prices stabilized, or I guess bring them up. So in response, if I'm not mistaken, Saudi Arabia decided to ramp up production, which decreases the value of oil, and it's a move against Russia to decrease because it decreases the value of everyone's oil. And I think they figure, oh, we got more oil than them, so we can outlast. But it's also decreasing the value of our oil. And oil in America has become, I don't know if it's a number one export, but it's a big export of ours. Fun fact: Obama is the one for Obama doubled oil production in this country essentially from W. Bush or George W. Bush's years. Under Bush, it was 5.5 million barrels a day, and I think under Obama it switched to 9.5, or over the course of his presidency, went up to 9.5.
Yeah, I remember that was like one of the things that was it Romney that went against him in
Yeah,
2008 or
no, I think it was
2000.
2012.
That's what I meant, 2012. Yeah, and that was like one of their hot debate topics, and Obama was kind of talking about that on the debate. I remember them arguing about that because Romney was trying to say that he didn't do shit with oil, and Barack Obama was like saying that he did it.
Actually,
Yeah. So,
stock market
um,
stock market was doing just fine under Obama.
yeah. Well, I mean, you know, he
I'm not
was,
saying that's a good thing. People think like that's a good thing. Who gives a shit unless you are a billionaire who has a shitload of stocks, you know?
yeah. I know it's kind of interesting how much weight that has. Like people look at this. Like, I mean, Donald Trump is the reason people have so much weight in what the Dow is up this much. Like he was saying at
That's the
his
fake
press.
economy.
Yeah, he was saying at the press conference this morning, I think. Yeah, this morning he was saying at the press conference, like, the Dow went up more than it has in a long time. Well, the last time that it had that huge of a spike was in 2008, right before the fucking economy collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm. And then
uh,
in 1999 too, with
right.
the dot-com crash.
Yeah. So it's not. I don't understand why he puts so much weight on that. We should really have different metrics as to what what makes a economy good. I don't think that having $24 trillion in debt is what makes an economy good.
Mm-hmm. That's what this organization, American Compass, talks about. I cannot remember the name of the guy who's heading it. He worked with Mitt Romney. I think he worked on his campaign. Um, but he's been doing a lot of appearances. He's been on Rising, and he has a system. It's the Thrive Index, I think is what it's called, where it's a new way of evaluating our economy and determining, or I guess, um, describing whether or not it's benefiting regular people.
Yeah.
Because you can, if you just look at GDP or you just look at the stock market, I mean, that's something, but if it doesn't if it doesn't make people's lives better, if it doesn't put money in our pockets or get us through school or
Yeah.
or open more business, if it doesn't help us open more businesses or things like that, then it doesn't matter really. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter at all.
Well, I had someone, family member, email me about because I posted on my story something about our healthcare system compared to other healthcare systems, and he was like, "Have you ever talked to someone that lives over in those countries?" And I'm like, "Well, no, but I don't want personal experience to tell me whether or not something's good. Like, I want to look at
Anecdotal evidence,
data. Yeah, I want to
yeah.
look at data and see what the data says." And this was like a metadata analysis study that was done by, I think, the World Health Organization. And so and that's where you get the numbers from, because I can tell you a personal anecdote of mine that says that I almost went bankrupt last year and I'm still really sick. So I mean, like, but I'm not going to that's not what I'm basing our healthcare system off of.
Mhm.
um
Yeah, I think a- anecdotal evidence, people's personal stories are worth something, but it's not worth throwing your whole decision behind at all.
well,
I used to make that mistake, and so many people do. Oh, I talked to someone from Cuba who's here, and they say it's horrible over there. Well, generally people who wind up here from Cuba hate it. People who are in Cuba like it.
right.
So it's just like people don't really understand all these different dynamics that come into play, or reasons that people have different positions. If you look at Soviet Russia, there are people from Soviet Russia who liked it. There are people from Soviet Russia who didn't like it. Ones who didn't like it are going to talk shit. The one who did like it, and it's just who you talk to.
But
And
that's why you need like empirical data, because
exactly.
yeah, because if you talk to 10, like, let's say that you go to Coeur d'Alene, where I live, and you talk to 10 people and ask them how the education system in America is doing, you know what I mean? They're going to tell you it's shitty because Idaho has the worst. And I mean, America's education system isn't the best anyways, but Idaho's is one of the worst. And so if you talk to 10 people in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and get their personal experience on it, it doesn't give you even like a look behind any curtain of how the entire country's healthcare system is doing. And same goes with other countries. Like, so after he wrote me, just because I was curious, I emailed a friend of mine that lives in the UK, which is one of the highest rated healthcare systems in the world. And I asked him, I was like, "Hey, just out of curiosity, like, what's your healthcare system like to you personally? No data, don't compare it to the United States. I'm not even interested in knowing what you think of it compared to the United States, right? I just want to know what you personally think about it, like what can be improved, what could be worse." And he was like, "Honestly, man, like, I don't even think about it. It's free, it's nationalized." And he said, and then he was talking about the United States, and he's like, "But I have a friend who said that he pays, like, I think he said like $600 for insurance or something a month." And that's insane. And I'm like, dude, and that is cheap cheaper insurance. Like you can spend $1,200 a month on insurance here, and then you don't even meet your deductible, you know. So and it's interesting because you see a lot of people right now with the coronavirus saying that they want to see that they're worried about people being displaced and they want to see people being helped through this time, right? But what the fuck makes coronavirus any different than cancer or diabetes or the flu or anything that arises in someone's life, breaking your fucking leg because you have some weird accident on a bicycle? Like whatever the case may be, things arise and typically it's not your fault. You know, maybe you could have eaten better, you could have exercised more, but you know what I mean? Like medical is something that just is a part of everybody's life. There's no controlling it, you know. If you get sick and you end up in the hospital and you have an $80,000 bill, that's not like you went out and maxed 10 credit cards and now you need to now you're like have to pay the piper. And the fact that like I think 60% of our bankruptcies are due to medical debt, that is an indication right there that we're already paying for it, you know. So
There are other situations where you're driving and some uninsured person hits you, and you're no fault of your own. You have a fat hospital bill that you're responsible for yourself. You know, unless you know the other person pays or whatever. Um, I have a friend in London. I talked to her about it, and she pays for private insurance. She's wealthy, a little better position than a lot of people, but she still likes the NHS. You know, and the general, like when I talk to people from over there, like no one hates it. Even people who don't use it, even people that have better insurance are glad it's there. You know, it's just they understand that it's better for everyone. You know, and it's in your own interest for other people to be doing better around you. You know.
yeah, and it's pretty interesting how I mean, dude, like I've said this a million times on my podcast and shit, but I used to be against it. I mean, you know that. Like you and I have talked about that numerous times. I used to think the same fucking one-liners like how are we going to pay for it and all that shit. But then once you look at the data and you really actually analyze it and look at the studies and how other countries are doing it, like France, for example, they have a socialized healthcare system, but it's still private, you know. And so it's socialized, but it's not done by the government. It's done by companies, and then people have votes and say on how it's ran by the companies, and the government just ensures that they are not fucking people over, basically. So
I think about their system.
yeah, so it's just a different way of doing it. So that's kind of like a problem that I have with it is it doesn't need to be one way. You know, people are concerned about bureaucrats just making fuckloads of money for the government and government waste and creating, you know, a paper stapler guy and a, you know what I mean, a stamp guy and all these different jobs that are unnecessary. Well, it doesn't need to be that way. It can still be just government oversight and have private companies with the interest of the people, if that's even possible. I mean, it seems to be in France, but who knows if it is here. So
Yeah.
well, sorry, just one more thing. Private insurance already is it's just not for everybody. So private insurance already takes those ideas and has, you know, some people, everybody pays in, some people use it more than others, and that's how it turns out to be successful. And I don't think that people realize that.
Yeah. To me, I mean, that's pretty easy to understand, I think. And also just it's pretty easy to understand that insurance companies have profit margins, and if you get rid of those profit margins, it'll be saving us money overall. But really, I think the most important thing is that people are sick and tired of being fucked over by the insurance companies, and I think generally a lot of people just want insurance companies to die and never come back.
I certainly do.
And yeah,
But
I think that's one of the
people are tired of paying $20 for ibuprofen at a hospital just because you're at you pay $20 for like one ibuprofen
for the service.
yeah. And when I was at the hospital for my Crohn's stuff, the thing that like I literally almost went bankrupt for last year, when I was there, they wanted to draw blood, and I was like, how much are you going to charge me to draw blood? why are you drawing my blood? Like, how much are you going to charge me to draw blood? And they're like, I can't even tell you that. I'm like, can you get a manager? Maybe they can tell me, or some kind of supervisor, maybe a billing person. Maybe they can tell me. Nobody could tell me. All they could tell me is that they were going to charge me $300 that day, and then I'd have to get a bill from them and pay it off later. That's all they could tell me. They couldn't tell me anything else. So I had no idea how much money I was going to be paying out of pocket that day, or not that day, but how much money I was going to pay overall. I thought $300 seemed like a lot, you know? So,
Yeah.
and then I got a bill for 7,000. So, and, but that's the thing, is like, this isn't like free market or whatever. This is a huge scam. And I was talking to Tim Beck, and what I told Tim Beck was, I don't care if we go with universal basic income, or not universal basic income. I don't care if we go to a universal healthcare system, or if we go to something else, but it just needs to be something better, you know? Like, we just need something better. And the data shows that the universal healthcare is the better thing. You know, that it's already been tested in all of these countries. We can look at them, we can model a system off of them, we can make a
And
good
Americans really
healthcare.
have no idea. We have generally
Yeah.
Americans have no idea what they're like over there. There's this information filter, this propaganda filter at especially people on the right that is like, oh, you know, like you said, you know, like, oh, waiting lines and oh, who's going to pay for it? All these things. It's just the regurgitated same shit. They don't have these arguments in those countries. There was in 2016, there was a debate, or maybe it's a town hall. No, it's a debate in 2017, I think, with Ted Cruz and Bernie Sanders. And in that debate, there's this famous economist from I can't remember if it's Sweden or Denmark, some Scandinavian country, and he spoke up to ask Bernie Sanders a question, and I can't remember what his question was, but Bernie Sanders flipped it around on him and was like, "Actually, you're from this country. Tell me what your healthcare system is like. Are there lines? What's your experience been?" And he's like, "Well, no, not really." And he's like, "Well, me and my mother needed this surgery, and she got it done really quickly, and." You know, it's really good. And that guy's a right-wing economist, like a libertarian sort of economist, I think
Right.
is who he falls in line with here. And that's what I'm saying is like people in those countries, even on the right, don't argue against because it's there's no argument. Everyone already knows. We're the only country that hasn't figured that out yet. Well, there's others, but
Well, it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like Social Security. If you ask someone here if they think that Social Security should be abolished, it's very few people say that they do. You know, I know a couple free market people that say that they do, and at least they're consistent. You know what I mean? I don't. If they're going to say no to universal healthcare, I hope they say no to everything else, because at least they're consistent. Because
Mhm.
if you want
At least they're consistent with their "fuck the poor" views.
yeah. So with universal healthcare though, you know, it just I I haven't heard a good argument against it. I'm like still waiting for a good argument. And I keep on telling that to everybody that's against it. Like, I just want one good argument. And it has to here's what a good argument looks like. It's going to cost us more money. We know that's not the case. You know, all the data shows it's not. We pay 4 times more than any other country, modern country, on healthcare. So, I think 2 times more than Canada. So Canada is like one of the worst compared to like the Scandinavian countries, or London, or I mean the
The
UK
UK, yeah.
or whatever. So I just want a good argument against it, and I will actually change my views on this. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
I have in the past. I haven't heard a good argument. So
Yeah, even anyone who's going to present an argument against universal healthcare, you can't do that while saying that this is the alternative. You know, everything. What's worse than this healthcare system? I mean, I really can't think of much because even if you honestly, if you like, there there's other you could even get it a system that like China has where there isn't national health care but everything's cheaper. You know what I mean? That could even be done. But I I don't know how long we've been talking, and I don't want to cut it short, but we've probably been talking long enough that
yeah,
cutting short is
we have to cut
qualified.
it short
My my
because I
my
gotta
my,
leave
my
soon.
girl just got home, so
Perfect timing. I gotta go get
should
Kendra from
replace.
work. So, hey,
Hey,
it was good
it was good
talking to you.
talking. Yeah, next time we'll get my buddy on that we meant to
Yeah,
get on.
and hopefully we'll get Tim back on here or something, so
Yeah,
he can
yeah.
tell us we're stupid. All right, all right, man. Well, have a good one.
You have a good one too. Have a
All
good
right.
night.